what industry did you ultimately pursue a career in?
I started off in web development, and then I moved towards like autonomous vehicles, but then now I'm in AR, VR, which is what our startup is today.
And so can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Yeah, so we're the most used AR, VR app on the planet. People work full-time in VR using Immersed, partner with all the tech giants like Microsoft, ByteDance, which is TikTok, Meta, and all of them. The only app that people spend 40, 50 hours a week every week with a headset on with their computer screens and their remote team in that space, whiteboarding together, coding together, designing together, all of that. So as everyone started to work from home, it's been difficult to actually be in the same space together because everyone moved to different places. People don't work in the office, and so if you have a headset on, which once Apple's headset comes out, sort of this thin, sleek visor that's coming out, you can then put on the visor and then be in your virtual office with your team.
Wow. If you were to go back to when you were either high school or college and you're having a conversation with your 20-year-old self, what is the best piece of advice that you would tell your younger self?
Learn how to code.
Yeah.
I think that like a lot of people who look at coding, they just think that it's just for one subset of type of people. I think that it should be just like reading, writing, arithmetic, but coding being number 4. Because there's so many things in life that you can automate so that you could just focus on the creative or the fun parts of life. An example would be like my wife, for example. She used to be an accountant at a company, and she used to spend 12 to 16 hours every week just literally just like manually sorting bills. When I coded this algorithm for her real quick, it took me like 30 minutes to code it, and then it would automate her entire 12 to 16 hours worth of work per week in 30 seconds. Wow. And so if you just learn how to, and also it wasn't complex. If you learn how to just code a little bit, it's almost like you know how to do a little bit of math. Like, okay, maybe you're not like solving rocket science type problems, but as long as you know how to do like multiplication, division, things like that, it takes you really, really far in life.
Yeah. In your opinion, what do you think is the best computer programming language that people should learn in 2023?
Yeah, start off with Python and Ruby. That stuff's easier to pick up. Also JavaScript. But I mean, if you had to start somewhere, I would say JavaScript or Python.
For sure.
Yeah.
So if you were to go back to when you were first starting that business, what's the number one thing that you would tell yourself? What is your best advice to anybody who's starting a business in today's world?
It's hard as crap.
So like you're starting that first business, what's the number one piece of advice that you tell yourself, and what's your best advice to anybody who's starting a business today?
Yeah, it's extremely hard as crap, and you're not entitled to win. Meaning the market doesn't care whether or not you are successful. You need to build a product or a service that people actually want. And so I think a lot of early stage entrepreneurs think that it's easy to build something. Elon Musk did it, so I can do it. And like it's almost like this sort of participation trophy type mentality. Like, oh yeah, if Elon should be able to do it, I should be able to do it. And like, yes, that's true to a certain extent, but he worked his freaking butt off to get there. Same thing with whoever else is going to be successful. You have to work like crazy to get the essentials, the success that you want if you want to look anything like Elon's. And so I think that a lot of people hope that their venture will be extremely easy to achieve and like they're entitled to it, but that's actually just not the case. Like, just realize at the end of the day, if your product or service ultimately doesn't solve a problem, nothing else will save you.
Right. And so you've grown, the largest like VR app or like platform out there right now. What was your secret to scaling your business? What's your best advice to anybody trying to scale and grow a business in 2023? What was the number one thing that you implemented to really grow your business to the point it is today?
Yeah, look for virality loops, meaning don't just shove money towards Facebook ads or Instagram ads or whatever. Instead, find out what sort of mechanisms people are already sort of walking through and how do you sort of grease that a little bit to make them kind of amplify your message even more quickly. So an example would be we would survey all of our users every single day, just through automated emails. Once they would onboard, we have their email address when they make the account, and then we would have their email address. We would then send them a survey, ask them, fill out a couple questions. At the end of that, we would tell them to leave a review. And so when we realized that all of these users who were giving us a ton of feedback, they either loved us or hated us, we ended up realizing the ones that love us, we'll send them towards our reviews. The ones who hated us, we won't really tell them that we have reviews. And so the point is, all the 5-star reviews started pouring in. That started giving us a way more exposure. So it ended up becoming this sort of virality loop. The more people that ended up leaving good reviews on our app, the more popular our app became, attracted more people who would then leave more 5-star reviews. And so essentially it's this virality loop that we were able to identify that if we just grease a little bit, make that automated and very, very simple, then gives us way more exposure than if I were to just spend a bunch of money on Facebook ads.
Yeah, and so obviously a big component to business is sales. What has been your secret to sales throughout your career?
Put yourself in the mind of the customer, right? Like if you're writing an email or you're making a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post or Instagram post, how would you receive that message if you were to see it yourself? If it's something that's spammy, all right, next. If you're creating content, same thing. Am I actually going to watch this video? Is it actually engaging? If it's not, next. Yeah. So my point is, if you're trying to sell anything, if you're trying to market anything, make sure it's something that you're actually interested in. If it's not interesting to you, the customer is not going to find it interesting either. Yeah.
2 last questions for you. If your bank account hit zero tomorrow, what would be the first step that you would take to become financially free again?
So I think first off, like time isn't a luxury. I'd immediately go get a job somewhere ASAP, right? So you have at least a little bit of money coming in your bank account while you figure things out. For me, when I was an undergrad, I was able to get a couple of jobs that allowed me to do my homework while getting paid. I would sit at a front desk at a computer lab, get paid $15 an hour, and then be able to just do my homework while getting paid. If I was able to get a job similar to that where I can then work on my own thing, like monitor something, be a security guard, something like that, maybe that's $15 an hour or whatever, but it's $15 an hour while you're trying to figure out how do I get my other thing off the ground. So something that gives you sort of some level of passive revenue so you can then invest that, compound it into other stocks or things like that while trying to get your own thing off the ground. So I think that if people are just trying to perpetually get their own thing off the ground and they start with $0, it's going to be extremely difficult to get started unless someone believes in you first.
Right. And then my last question for you, but like how important has it been surrounding yourself with the right people throughout your career? Or like how important have relationships been for you?
Probably one of the biggest drivers is having people around you that you want to be like, right? So an example, the reason why I love Lecrae or Pat Gelsinger or some of these other guys is because these are people who have been where I want to be, right? These are guys who can teach me all the mistakes that they made so that I don't have to make them myself. I think that a lot of people ultimately try to just do a lot of spray and pray, a lot of hyperactivity without being super calculated about what they're spending their time on. And if Lecrae or Pat Gelsinger says, well, I already did that and like this is what happened, I can either decide, okay, well, I'll do that a little bit differently, but I'll also do that same thing. Or I don't even want to go anywhere near down that path, and so I'm just going to go another way. So surround yourself with people who have been where you want to be and actually listen to their advice because they've done it before. Like, yes, it's different in a new, innovative world, but learn the abstract concepts and then do it in your sort of way, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much for your time, bro. I really appreciate that.